It's Jay. I'm back in for another one. Tonight I have with me,
Captain Keith.
what's up, Earth?
Another day, man. Another day.
Yeah, man. So we had got together, went to go check out Civil War, which it's been out for a minute, but it's one of those kind of ones that I started kind of hearing mixed stuff about, but I didn't let it get to me. I'm like, I still want to check it out, see it on my own, because people could be interesting when it comes to movies. You never know, man. We have our opinions. Everybody got their opinions and stuff, and
Right.
so I guess I have to admit, like once upon a time, there would be times where if I would listen to certain critics and stuff, I got so used to being in that whole cipher of critics and things that I start kind of taking critics' word for like they had like a bad experience with a movie or had an issue with something. And I remember just like before when I got into movies, I just watched everything. I didn't care if it was good or bad or not. I just like being in the theater. I love the popcorn. I love being able to be stuck in that one place. You got to pay attention and you got this big old presence in front of you, this whole big old screen with these explosions or this great acting you can see right into their face and stuff like that. Like it's all about that and it's being respected and you're in a place that shows respect for that thing. It's no getting up and doing the laundry real quick, or let me go run and do this. Like, you a whole going to the bathroom so you wouldn't miss something. You know what I mean? Like, it was that kind of dedication. And eventually I got back to that. But like I said, once upon a time, I would get caught up real quick if I heard somebody say a bad review. And I guess it's just because I respect certain critics. But then, you might have your own taste and you don't know what's going to be for you. So I still leave it as if the trailer kind of gets it, gets it for me, or somebody kind of suggested that I trust their taste, then I'll give it a try. Or if I just looking for a movie and I want to be in the theater, I'll go see whatever's in there. And even though I heard mixed stuff about it, I still thought it would be interesting. But I made sure I didn't really watch too many trailers, and I also made sure I didn't hear what the issues that people had with it, and so I could see it for myself. And I thought it was great that you wanted to see it as well. So we wanted to see it before it left.
Of course, I've seen the trailer a few times, the same trailer.
Right.
And I was curious. Then I saw a commercial for a trailer where it said it was the number one movie in America.
What, this Civil War?
Yeah.
Like when it first came out?
Something like that, but I was surprised. But I don't think it was the first weekend. I think it might have been the first weekend or it might have been the second. I'm not sure, but I was kind of surprised. But I'm like, okay, because people were talking about it anyway. Like you said, mixed reviews. And like, yeah, I didn't pay attention to it.
Yeah, so Civil War. Okay, so what we'll do, I'll get a synopsis. We will give non-spoilers, how we felt about it, and then we could get into a little discussion.
Sure.
Okay, so we're talking about the movie Civil War, and it's a journey across the dystopian future of America, following a team of military-enabled journalists as they race against time to reach D.C. before a rebel faction descend upon the White House. What was your thoughts of this movie?
It was different. I'm not going to say I enjoyed it. I'm still processing.
Okay.
I didn't dislike it at all. I was intrigued. It kept my attention. Period. Love the cinematography. I was very impressed on how it was shot.
Right.
So, and I didn't realize at first, or I forgot there was an A24. And you and I have talked about A24. They always do some very groundbreaking, provocative type of work.
Yeah.
Whenever you see one of their films. Okay, so I did like the story. I really like Kirsten Dunst, and I hadn't really watched her in a while.
Okay.
No, I had to actually really pay attention to her in this film, and I'm glad that I did because it reminded me of how good of an actress that she is, and that I do like her. And after watching her in this film, I'm going to pay more attention to whatever she's doing lately, because I haven't, because she's been out of sight, out of mind for me for a while. Okay. I see her here and there, but I really enjoyed her in this film, her work, and I've never really been big on journalists, surprisingly, but the photojournalists, it was interesting to see how they got into all of that. It was different. It was cool. It was definitely a film worth talking about. Definitely something that provides coffee table conversation. And I think it's a film that may be studied or should be talked about in class, maybe in film school. So yeah, I do like the film. I have some issues with it, but I have some questions about some things I didn't like. Well, overall, yes, I like it.
Okay. I liked it as well. It was different than what I thought it was going to be. It was one of those kind of movies that I think it wasn't, in a way, I think purposely misadvertised in a way. Even though it was different than how I felt it was advertised, it didn't mean that it wasn't a good movie, and it didn't have, because it had a strong vibe to it, right? It had a strong look to it and narrative and things like that. which kept me at the edge of my seat, just kind of like, what's going on with this? So it was enough to kind of, I guess, like I said, keep you interested, because the way it just kept moving, and you go on this journey and you're trying to understand what you're dealing with and what you're seeing. You know, it's a lot of things that you're trying to learn as you go. Well, a lot of movies could be where you could be on autopilot because you kind of know what this is already, and you're just trying to figure out one part. This movie, you're trying to figure out one part and everything else around it, and because it really, depending on where you are, it dictates what you're seeing. You know, like a puzzle piece, and you just don't know what puzzle it goes to. So you got a piece, you know, you got to figure it out, but you're not even sure what the whole picture is supposed to be. You don't know what the picture, you know, on the box is going to look like. So you're finding your way, but it's just going to be harder because you don't know what the end of it is supposed to be. And like you, I enjoyed it, but I don't know if it's like a thing I would necessarily, maybe I would rewatch it. I can't say it was necessarily a fun movie, but like I said, it was definitely entertaining, and it was definitely one of those kind of like journey movies that you just kind of follow through. And if you're a person that likes movies, I think you would enjoy it. But if you're going in for what the trailer is showing you, it's not that. It's probably not what you're thinking it is due to the trailer. But it was a cool movie. Yes, it was a cool movie.
Yes. But addressing what you just said about how the trailer shows one thing, but when you watch this, something different. I actually like that. I actually like that they did that, because these days, so many trailers give everything away. You know, there's no real mystery to it when you go to see it, and I hate that. Or they give all the good stuff's in the trailer, so by the time you see the movie, you're like, because they did it that way. It did leave me with some questions, but some of the questions were kind of obvious questions. Well, I'm sure we'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah. The fact of being different, I don't know. I think that when it comes to politics and religion and stuff like that, people are strong feelings about those kind of things.
Yeah.
So it's almost kind of like if you have an issue with something or feel a certain way about something, and you're going because you think it's about that and it's not that, it'll be taken differently than somebody who just, I have no opinion, I just want to see what you're telling me, versus you want the preacher to preach to you the religion that you know. You know,
Gotcha.
And for that, it's a different kind of thing. We'll get more into it, but I don't know if I recommend it. If you just open to movies and you just want to see something that was interesting that you probably never seen before, because in this movie I seen some stuff I wasn't expecting to see, I'll give it that. But it was a well done, well put together movie, but I can understand why some would probably have an issue with it.
Yes, definitely. I can see that too. I mean, I'll say this film definitely shows you the worst of humanity, but it still shows you some of the best of it too, and places that you, and characters and places that you wouldn't expect. Maybe I shouldn't say wouldn't expect, but there is the best of humanity in this film. There's a lot of the worst of it when you watch this film. A lot of it's like 90%, or 80 to 90%. But there is that 10 to 20% that I realized, I guess, watching the film, especially afterwards, when I'm sitting here talking to you now, thinking about it, and we can get into that in a minute, that I thought was well done. But yeah, if you're looking to be just entertained, it may not be for you. But if you're looking for something that is provocative, that will stimulate your mind a little bit, because makes you kind of think about some things. If you're looking for something to chew on, this is a good film for that. Okay. Because it has a really good mix of drama with action. There's lots of action, but there's lots of intense drama with the action. Whereas, I mean, there's remnants of The Purge in it, but in some ways it's better because there's an intensity that's not suspenseful per se, but filled with drama with the action, with almost like every scene. I mean, I would love to talk to the director about the process of making this film and how long it took, because there's a lot going on in a lot of those scenes. So, I mean, it's one thing to direct a film and just give me nonstop action. And there are viewers and fans, an audience who love that, who just eat that up. You know, maybe throw a little comedy in, but just action, and they're just happy. But this, it was a really cool balance. Yeah. Like I said, I'm used to it being maybe suspense and action, you know, kind of like Mission Impossible kind of. But this was like heavy drama and heavy action, full speed ahead, and just blended together in a way that I'm not used to seeing, actually.
Yeah, it's definitely different, and definitely a lot that I've never seen before. So
yeah,
I agree. I'll give it credit for that for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get into our spoiler territory. Having the name Civil War, that's already, your mind gonna go to something already, right? So the title of the movie is Civil War. And then on the trailer, you got a guy, blonde hair, blue-eyed guy, and he's coming across this guy that seems to not be from America, and he says, "Hey, I'm an American." And you've seen things where, somebody's like, from a different country, and they say, "Hey, I'm American, just like you. I'm here." And he asked the question, "What kind of American are you?" When that's in the trailer, they're selling you a certain thing. Now we know what that means and how that sounds. Saying that to, somebody who
looked Latin.
Right.
Who could have been Mexican.
Right.
But we don't know per se what he was.
Yeah.
But the symbolism and the innuendos in that trailer.
So you figure you're gonna get that kind of a movie, like, actual Civil War going on and stuff. And it was, but you quickly realize it's like alternative history or world where states have separated from the United States and they got their own thing going. And I think Texas and California started doing their own thing. And then all these other different states broke off, and it's this unrest. And even though it was interesting, the direction they were trying to go and the story they were trying to tell, and it was cool because they had the premise of, where you could be a journalist that would take pictures and you would kind of document these kind of things. Okay, I enjoyed what it was showing me and the places we got a chance to see it and the perspective that we saw it in, but I couldn't hardly get over the fact that the journalists or the photographers are putting themselves in harm's way like that for the picture. Like, they're sticking their necks out before the person with the gun is, and they're not really equipped. They don't have any weapons. They don't have any kind of protection, really, and they're on the front lines and they're just following, and that's their thing. And I, even though like New York Times has mentioned stuff like that in passing, but it's like, okay, so you're documenting this for who and who's sending it? Like, it almost seems like everything is so crazy and out of whack. And if they just journalists and they're unbiased, like, I have a hard time believing that the people on one side care, and I doubt the government would care. And so you'd be in danger anyway, but it's almost like they're almost protected from getting harmed because everybody knows as long as they have this little jacket on or a little press pass that they won't get shot at. I couldn't imagine them living that long to even do that. So some of that stuff was just like, it was just blowing my mind. I couldn't imagine them getting away with that. Or, like I say, either side.
That's what goes on, though.
Or either side respecting that kind of stuff. Yeah, but they're not in front. They're not jumping in front of the bullets. They're not jumping in front of the situations either. Like that girl, this young girl who wants to be an up-and-coming photographer, and she runs into Kristen Dunst, which is a character that she's been digging for a long time, and she want to be like her and stuff like that.
True disappointment.
I'm like, okay, so there's fire going on between these two fractions, and you're up there taking pictures, and I'm talking about if they stick out, if they blew their nose, they would get snot on them. They're that close to people fighting and tussling. Breakout is happening, and it's these people fighting these cops. And the people fighting the cops it seemed like if everything is falling apart like that, right? The whole thing of, I'm going to do nonviolence fighting against the police with batons and guns and shields and armor, and I'm just going to fight them with my peace, with my fists and stuff, doesn't make sense already. Because if everything fell apart, everybody would be packing, everybody would be protected and trying to fight. This wasn't like, right now at City Hall and the people, hey man, this is for love and I'm a hippie, and the cops are like bullying them. No, these people are, it's this contentious between all of them. So I didn't see where it would ever be a point where a crowd would be arguing with those police and not be equipped for it. But regardless, they're fighting and tussling and stuff, and they so close with the camera taking pictures, they get elbowed. And I'm thinking, like, there's special lenses that you have for camera. You could be 2 blocks away and get a headshot with the cameras and stuff. So them being that close to danger where you could feel the person breathing on you or getting elbowed while they're tussling, it's like, why would you have to put yourself in that kind of danger in the first place? Like, you need to live and be alive to be able to share the information with whoever they're going to share.
Oh, and you're right, Jay, but it's interesting because it's kind of mind-blowing when you think about war photographers. I mean, so you have people at war killing each other, but yet the journalists get to be safe while they're out there.
Well, they're not safe with the enemy. They're safe with the people that they're with, and I'm saying they're in the middle of the two. Like that, it wasn't like Okay, say the cops was doing it for PR and they would need a journalist, right? They would protect them on their side, and guess who wouldn't care? The people the cops were fighting with. Or say the people was with the people like, hey, these cops are bullying us. We'll protect you from the cops. Guess who the cops wouldn't be worried about? About the person trying to take pictures. They'd be trying to get you too. So to be in there as a neutral piece and both sides respect that was hard for me to understand because
it blew me away too. It was kind of weird. It was weird. It was strange.
Right. So like I said, so it made it just sit different to me. Like I said, I liked what I got from it as far as like being able to be up in there. And then you have these like key shots that they take of this things that are happening. That stuff looks great. I don't believe how it got to that, but I thought it was neat. Those things were cool in that imaginary scenario. Now, like I said, where you had an imaginary, like I said, press pass that made you, out of danger. Because people be killing medics, people be killing like clergy and all that kind of stuff. So people don't be caring when stuff be going down. Those people die and get hurt. So in this world that we're watching in this movie, for them to walk around with a badge and be safe, or to be that close and nobody is like, because how do they know who you taking pictures? Say somebody did just walk up, right? And nobody knows who you are and you got a press pass. Are you with me to show that they're doing something wrong to me? Or are you with them trying to, and since nobody knows.
Good question.
Who is this?
Yeah.
Who is this?
Yeah. Now, towards the end though, when they got to the White House and they got close to that room, you heard what they said. So when they said, stay the F out of our way.
Yeah.
Like, hey.
Yeah, because like I said, because everybody doesn't play that. Yeah, because everybody doesn't play it by the same rules.
Yeah. So now I guess what bothered me is it's a civil war, and we see this across the nation. We see all this random, senseless violence, but no one talks about how it got started.
Exactly.
So that bothered me. That why did Texas and California succeed?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we got some rumblings from the photographers when they were talking before they took their trip about what they were going to ask the president, and we heard, we found out that he wasn't really that good of a guy. I guess he dismantled the FBI. He made all kinds of questionable decisions, and maybe so we get to allude that maybe this was a reaction to who the president is and how they don't like him.
But I wouldn't have taken apart the FBI as being necessarily a bad. So when they did say that, I was thinking like, wouldn't most people be okay? I thought it was kind of funny when they said
that. I was thinking CIA, but that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I think everything needs an overhaul. Police departments, I think everything needs an overhaul.
I'm with you on that. But but we never really got to understand why all that went down. We just saw that it was happening. But now it was interesting. Like I said, this film is still a great study on human behavior, because when they go to the one town and they just ignore it, we don't worry about that. We don't watch the news. You want to try something on?
Right.
So, I mean,
we always going to have people that's going to try to have normalcy or whatever that is.
Yeah. Now, I thought it was interesting because they're in the South, and I didn't really get any. We got a racist vibe towards the end when he's asking you about, what kind of American you are. But before all of that, in the South, there was no issue about people being Black or Latin or whatever. It was just, we're ignoring that, or we're, you're in the way. I'm trying to shoot this person. It was interesting.
Well, was it a situation where the race part would have came up?
Because when you say Civil War, especially from
the name you would think that, but I'm talking about in the movie, it wasn't really a situation where that would be.
Well, because they're driving in the South. They had an older Black man with them, and then
that was whiter than the rest of them. He was the lightest thing in the car. No, I'm just saying, like if somebody saw him in the car, they wouldn't necessarily think it was a Black guy necessarily driving by.
Oh, okay, he's a very light-skinned Black man, but yeah.
The actor, like I said, he's not albino, but he's very pale, very pale.
Yeah, and then you have the male journalist who's looks Latin. But it was just interesting because I'm thinking, well, you're driving in the South, so especially when they pull up to that gas station and they saw those guns. My instinct was like, yeah, we'll get gas somewhere else. That was my instinct. I'm like, I'm not.
And so it was a Black guy. He was like, I seen a little turnout place back about a half a mile back. Maybe we should go back that way.
Yeah, that's what he said. And they're like, oh no, we're gonna go.
Right.
So I was just like, I ain't the one on that one. but it was yeah. So we didn't find out the nuts and bolts of how the Civil War got started, why it got started. So that did bother me. And that was now I will say that, like I said, Kirsten Dunst's character was great. I could tell she was burnt out. I mean, I was seeing her being burnt out in the beginning of the film a little bit, but it really hit me with those last scenes when they got to DC, and they were getting closer to in front of the White House, and she's over there like crying. And she just seemed like she was just done. Like she was over it.
Yeah.
Like she couldn't do it anymore. Like she couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, to me, it seemed like that came out of nowhere because before, so I didn't think that she was burnt out before necessarily, but I thought she was very jaded and she was already kind of set in her ways. It's almost kind of like, like when she's seeing the girl and she knew she's kind of new to all this stuff, she just knew it was going to be a liability. She already said up front, like, hey, I want to deal with this little kid. And just like she didn't want to deal with the old guy, just because they would be possible liabilities. Yeah. They were on this mission and their mission was to go get an interview with the president, right? So he was going to ask the question, her partner was going to ask the question, and she was going to take pictures and stuff. And so he's trying to figure out what kind of, questions to ask, that kind of stuff. But it was a trip because after the incident happened where her friend passed away, you could tell she was affected by it because she was kind of cleaning up behind them and trying to prepare so they could finish off with their, quote unquote mission journey or whatever. I thought that the way that came up with her having an issue and kind of tripping out by the situation and understanding what she was dealing with, her hitting her, I thought it was just kind of a convenient thing because, like I said, to me, I didn't see any signs of her having a real issue with that at the beginning. And even with her friend dying, where she knows people are going to pass, especially in that kind of situation that they're in, they go in knowing that they're probably not going to live. And they pretty much knew if they was going to go try to see the president, because they had said something about how somebody haven't seen him or spoke to him in 11 months and people are just dying and all this other kind of stuff. So it's almost like almost kind of like we're going on a mission. We're not going to necessarily come back. So we're not going to be feeling bad or liable for anything that might come if you come with us. So for her to start falling apart, I think they kind of just did that, show the new young person coming into themselves. It's almost like sacrificing her, because before the girl was so afraid she wouldn't take a picture when something bad was happening, right? And so now it turned on Kristen Dunst's character. Now she's afraid and now she can't take the picture, but the young girl is jumping in front of bullets and tanks and all this other kind of stuff and just making more problems. And Kristen Dunst just can't shake it. She just lost all of a sudden. And I'm thinking like, man,
well, I'll say this though, I think she was in shock, and I think it all hit her at that moment because, when she was cleaning off the blood on the seat from her friend,
right?
She was just going through the motions. I mean, that was a powerful scene because she's cleaning off this blood, and I'm gonna go with I think all of it just hit her at once when they got to the White House, when they're outside. I mean, with that whole scene, I think it all just came to a head. Because I think before, up until then, she was in shock, jaded, burnt out, and I think it all just hit her.
So in the beginning, when she met the girl and all those people got blown up in front of her, and then she went to go take pictures of it, the pieces and all that. Like I said, I don't know, man. I think she
she was still desensitized. She was numb. She had been. I mean, you have to kind of be numb to do that job anyway.
Exactly.
So it was amazing. Like the guy, I forget his name. I mean, he kept such a light spirit about all that stuff still. So he obviously
the guy was I think his name in the movie is named Joel.
Yeah, he wasn't as jaded as she was. I think he had been doing it just as long as her, but it was still a high for him, but you could tell it wasn't for her anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think it was chipping away, and we got more of it. I think the turning point was the death of the guy. Mm-hmm. And like I said, when she's scrubbing that blood, I was like, ooh, she kept doing it and she was still holding it together. Yeah. I'm like, okay, but she's going to break eventually. And then she did. So I think that was a part of it. I think it just all hit her because DC got just more intense than everything we already saw. It got even more intense. Mm-hmm. I was surprised. I think that was even possible, but they found a way to show it was possible.
Well, them just driving, trying to get on the road versus, going against the White House is heavily guarded. This whole thing going in where they trying to get that was so crazy to me too, how that went, that they were really gunning for the president. It was like January 6th in a way. And it was just like, what if they actually turned on him and what if they actually got him? It was interesting that was the premise. Yeah, it's like January 6th from an alternate universe. where everything
Yeah.
just kind of went crazy.
It's definitely food for thought. Now, the young girl's character, just who she looked so much like a young Jennifer Lawrence to me. It was eerie for me, like a little sister.
Huh.
I wanted to like her, but she just got to be annoying. Just
Yeah.
so annoying when she jumped into the other car.
Yeah.
I mean, that caused a chain of events that she couldn't take back. And then at the end, I mean, talk about just being cold-blooded. She was just cold-blooded. I didn't like her. Like the movie made me like Kirsten Dunst even more. Like I said, I'm gonna pay more attention to whatever she does now, because it was good to see her, and I didn't realize how much I actually do like her, and I liked her in that role. She did a good job in that film. She was great. I mean, she carried it. She did. And Nelson Lee, I think, is the older black man, the older gentleman. Mm-hmm. He was amazing.
He's always good.
Oh yeah, they're like, she's like, you stay here, you can't run, you're old. Yeah, but that old man saved your ass when he got in that car. And I'm thinking he should have been the one driving, but then so
he drove.
No. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he did. But yeah, the two of them stood out the most for me. Her and him, her chemistry, his performance, great. Like you say, he's good anyway. But yeah. So. And they were the best of humanity because of how they portrayed themselves. You saw how the worst of humanity was making her jaded, and then you saw her interaction with the young new aspiring war photographer.
Yeah, Jessie.
And she liked her, and I'm sure the girl did remind her of her. So you could see her softening up a little bit,
right?
And so that was good. But yeah.
And it was funny because Jessie was pushing up on her so hard. It was just so crazy because like she looked like a kid. I know she's supposed to be like 23 or something like that. Yeah. But she looked like a teenager. And so it threw me off, the whole blatant thing, like when they went to that town, like try this dress on and all this other kind of stuff, and you look good in this, and I'm like, well, come on, like if you were looking for this is the wrong line of work to be in, because they both had parents that stays out of all this stuff. They live on a farm and they want to just kind of have a blind eye. And it's funny, like you said, they didn't say exactly what happened or what went wrong or what the true issue was, but yet and still it was kind of brought up a lot. So it would have been nice to have that little insight. But I guess our situation was to kind of follow along with the journalists in their journey of finding things. Yeah, so it was an interesting kind of like this road trip thing, but just to see the people and the things that they did and stuff, and it was just like some of the stuff was very horrific. They show stuff in here I didn't see like even in war movies and stuff. So when I saw it, I was like, this is crazy for them to be showing this and for them to be going through it. And it's just like, wow. But even more reason, what happened and why? Yeah. Because it was always this thing, are you with them? Like, who is them? Why are you
shooting? Why are you shooting?
Like I said,
because he's shooting.
Yeah. It's just like this.
You're like, that's it? Okay.
Yeah, but but was it because they had something in that house? Were they trying to take the guy's house? Was that their house and they trying to get back into it? You don't know. But it was all these little things. Like you couldn't tell what it was. And the guy who was shooting, that was like the sniper, he had his nails painted. So were they trying to say something else with that?
Exactly. I noticed that too.
So it was a whole bunch of all these little things, and you just don't know what you're dealing with exactly. So it makes you work more than you would normally have to, because you don't know or understand your environment that you're in. And like I said, it's an alternative environment, and the character for what they tell you of them, but you don't know if you're on a checkerboard or a chessboard. But you do have these pieces, and it was just like trying to work it out. But I won't say it was a hard watch. It wasn't like I was so distracted that I was like, I can't enjoy this because I don't know this answer or know that. Because the individual characters and their journey, and that guy, like I said, her partner in crime, Joel, he was a cool character. He was very light, and it was neat when he saw his friends and how he was excited to see the friends. And I knew that was going to turn bad, but I didn't expect it to turn like that. Yeah, that I did not expect. So this movie was not, it wasn't typical. It wasn't easy to guess. It wasn't like, I know I've seen this before. No, it was a lot of new stuff in here I ain't never seen before, and things. Even though I figured something was going to come, it didn't come like I thought it was going to come. So this movie definitely wasn't one of those kind you could just be on autopilot and think you're going to sit up there and know exactly what's going on with it, because you will not. And then some of the choices that did happen that I figured would happen, those I wasn't so necessarily happy with. Like I agree. What happened with Kristen Dunst, like with her. Yeah. And the way that it happened was just kind of like, but so it was interesting. I guess it just kind of boils down to being this kind of dystopian journalist road trip movie that's supposed to be this mission that's supposed to, they know they're not going to survive, and they know it's lofty to going to DC and go to see the president and interview him before either gets his comeuppance or what.
Even when he got to the gas station and when the girl got out the car and then she started, going to the back of the gas station and then that boy's following her. I'm like, what are you doing? Thank goodness the Kirsten Dunst followed y'all. You don't know what that man was going to do to you. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
They all got guns. Keep your ass in the car. Keep your ass in the car.
I understand the character was probably used like that to get us in things that we wouldn't normally see, because really the main characters that we were dealing with, they would be smart enough to know not to do this kind of thing. So when they had the kid in the car when they was going to leave and they had the old man, I knew those would both be things to put them in situations that they would normally be in. So something's going to happen where the old man's got to stop or something, or the young kid was going to get them in trouble. It had to be something. Otherwise, just them two, they would have made it there.
Exactly. You're right. They wouldn't have been
not to say they wouldn't have had a flat tire or somebody tried to drop them off the road, but they wouldn't have had them problems. We wouldn't have saw a lot of stuff if it wasn't for them. We wouldn't have saw that stuff.
Yeah.
So they were to make sure we saw the ugliness as we went along.
And we did.
And we did.
And how. So
So,
definitely food for thought, though. Definitely a film you can talk about with your friends and colleagues and even debate about. I mean, like I said, but it definitely showed you humanity and not necessarily at its worst and its best. Yeah. And I'll say at its best with Kirsten Dunst and Nelson Lee's character.
Yeah, and even though he was in there for a long time, Nick Offerman, he played the president, and I thought that was kind of interesting how they started.
Oh yeah, he was good. Yeah, he was.
And then kind of ended with him. I thought that was interesting. He looked like he would be the president. He kind of, when you saw him, sometimes you have certain actors, you'd be like, oh man, that don't look like he would be the president, but he kind of fit.
His opening dialogue, we were rehearsing what he was going to say to the people about the war.
Right.
Very convincing. Right. Very, very believable.
And it's interesting too, like we don't know who was wrong or right.
No, we don't.
He could have been a good president. He could have been a president that did the right thing, and all hell broke loose because he did the right thing.
Yeah, and that's what makes the movie good, because there's so many open-ended questions that we don't have answers to. But we were still throwing so much. We were still given a lot to look at and to watch.
Right.
I mean,
no, we were. We had to stick on the journey at hand. But it's interesting that it was a political thriller that took away the political out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it made for a different kind of movie, and it just
like I said, there was elements of The Purge in it, but it didn't have the suspense of The Purge, but it had major drama.
But it was The Purge without the reasoning. At least with The Purge, we knew what it was about. We knew the reason,
right?
And we kind of knew who to root for. But this took it all out. We didn't know who.
And we just know people didn't give a F.
And so we just saw people that were mad and people who were lost. Like I said, it would have been interesting to kind of know what the journalist was fighting so hard to show and to share with others. We just knew that everybody was mad and fighting and disruption and all this kind of stuff. I don't know. I think that is probably to take the weight off of everything, and so you could just pay attention to the situation at hand. But like I said, the way our minds work and how we normally watch these kind of movies, for some, I think it could be a real big issue not to know whose side you're on, and you're not given enough to choose one. So it's like, then why you got me stuck in this situation? It's a rough spot to be in. You walk in the middle of something, and how do you watch a football game and not know nothing about neither one, and you just kind of indifferent? But it can't be indifferent because so much horrendous stuff happening. It's indifferent until somebody gets hurt. Now, if there's some other kind of movie where people wasn't getting, tortured or blown up and stuff like that, then you'd be like, eh. So it's funny how all the stuff that's going on makes you want to care, but you don't know. Like I said, the stakes are high, but you still don't know what you're dealing with. Interesting to deal with that. And I don't think I've dealt with that kind of thing in a movie before, where the stakes are high, but you did not know what was the win.
Yeah.
Because even the situation, how it ended, did that change anything?
Yeah.
Did that mean freedom for everybody? Us talking about it is not saying the movie is bad at all. Like, to me, this is like almost like a student movie. Not saying that the quality, because it looked gorgeous and it was well, written and stuff like that. Yeah. I'm just saying one of those kind of things where a young person would probably experiment and say, hey, I got this idea, and they're trying to, do something different, even though certain things won't make sense. To tell the story, they need to build this kind of a thing for it to be able to tell the story they want to tell. And so it feels like one of those kind of, if they would have said this is a first-time director or, a young director, I would believe it. Seasoned writer directors wouldn't make it this difficult. You know what I mean? Like, they wouldn't compromise all this stuff to get this narrative. But wasn't a bad movie at all. Like I said, it was an interesting watch. It was hard at times because, like I said, the violence and the gore and some of that stuff you wouldn't expect it, but it really did make you chew slowly because it was just a lot to take.
To chew on, yeah, it was
a lot to take.
Definitely.
But yeah.
So
do you have any other final words or anything about this?
Oh no, definitely check it out. Like I said, if you're looking for something that's gonna, if you're looking for junk food, this is not it. If you're looking for something, like I said, that you can chew on, stimulate your mind, that's provocative, that makes you wonder about some things, this is a good film for that. Like I said, if you want to see the human condition, the good and bad of it, it's in here. You also see, was there some art within the chaos? Yeah, actually there was. Yeah. You would never think that seeing pictures of war could be riveting or artistic, but some of the shots that we saw were, as painful and sad as they were, capturing those moments where they were brilliant. It takes talent to really do that, to have that kind of detail and to convey what just happened within a frame. So
yeah, I agree. I just know I'd never been through this much with a movie before, not knowing who I was rooting for.
Yeah, I know. I agree. No, you're right.
I don't think I ever had that experience before, and it was very interesting. And like I said, in some ways, I guess it's supposed to be freeing, but for me, it made it kind of difficult. But you did pay close attention to what was going on, and I guess the truth of it is, regardless of whose side you would have been on, the ugliness of what was going on was bigger than all that, right? If we reason to who hit who first, it's like there's no reason for nobody to be hurt or dead for that. You know what I mean? Like what would be a good answer for that? What would be a good reason? It probably wouldn't even be a good one, to be honest. So so think of it like that and kind of playing it that way. It'd be like, okay.
Well, and the scary part of it is that it felt, even though it's like an alternate universe, it felt very realistic. It felt like it could happen totally. Which is probably the controversy with the film and why people were watching it, because
they thought it was going to be straightforward. They're going to be like, hey, red or blue or this and this and that.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, like I said, really you're going to kind of fill it in with your own prejudice when you watch it, because they're not telling you what to think, but it's some familiar stuff and you just don't really know like whose side, but it's familiarity in it regardless of be it politics or be it religion, be it whatever it is, it's still going to be that ugliness that's going to come from those things.
Yes.
So insert your issue here and you're going to get the same results at the end. It's going to be the same total at the end, on the end on the receipt. It's going to be the same negative sum balance with these things.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. I'll definitely give it that. But the fact that, like I said, it should be going to streaming pretty soon. If people didn't go see it in the theater, it'll definitely be one of those kind of things you can just kind of sit back and take in and watch at home. And, maybe they get another breath at it once it goes to streaming. And then A24, like, people love that studio. People love those movies. People go and looking for that kind of thing. And I think those kind of movies always do better at home, because people who don't know how to feel or can they trust it or whatever in a theater, they have no problem pushing the button, maybe renting it or watching on streaming where you can see it for free or whatever and give it a chance. But would it be a movie I would normally go to like that? Not necessarily. But I'm glad it's out there. I'm glad that he got a chance to do that thing. Because, like I said, it's different. It's different.
No, I agree, and I might actually buy it. So we'll see, because it's definitely worth talking about. It's definitely a film that'll have you. You're gonna have a conversation after watching that film. I mean, there's just no other way around it. Because there's so much going on, like so many open-ended things, and you're just like, okay, well, what is this? What's going on? And I will say that I definitely liked most of the main characters, but one character I did not like, especially towards the end. Didn't like that person at all. The young reporter. Yeah, she just.
Jesse.
Yeah, Jesse got on my nerves, especially towards the end. I was just like, okay, yeah, you can go now.
Like I said, I thought it was kind of forced the way she kind of got thrown into that situation.
Yeah.
It was just too set up and just like, man,
too stalkery too. Yeah, it was just too much.
It's just
but that was part of the story, I guess. So
yeah, and unfortunately that's the only part I kind of figured was going to happen. I just didn't know how it was going to happen. And I wish it kind of
Yeah.
would have went a different kind of way. Because even the way it happened, I was kind of like, would that really happen like that?
No,
You
not
know what I mean?
really.
Like, you know what I mean? So it
She
kind of
wouldn't be
like,
that careless. No, no,
right,
not
right. So just kind of,
no.
keep,
But they wanted to wrap it up. It's
right.
like,
That's what I'm saying. They wanted it done versus like, find another way to do it. You can still have the same results, but find a different way that's not going to, dismantle the rest of the stuff that you did. You know
I
what
would
I
have
mean?
preferred somebody, from that camp just quit.
Or
Okay, I'm
something.
done.
Or
Because
something.
because I feel like that character was on their way out anyway. It didn't have to, I feel like that was probably going to be the last time they were going to be doing that.
Right.
Because I think because too much had happened.
Right. Right. But yeah, so like I said, I'm sure it was a rough one to juggle, but and I like the director Alex Garland. I like his movies. He did like Ex Machina. He did 28 Days Later. He did that Dread remake with Carl Urban.
That was fun. I enjoyed that.
He did Annihilation, which is a trippy, sci-fi-ish kind of.
I think I've seen
movie, with Natalie Portman. She's in it.
that. I think I did see it, and I think I liked it. I can't remember that.
So
I have to watch it again.
So he's an interesting kind of director. He has kind of his perspective. This would be an A24 movie. How about that? This would be his wheelhouse for sure. So, like I said, it was an interesting movie. Glad it's out there. But yeah, man. So it was good seeing this movie with you. Thanks for reaching out.
Oh yeah.
I wanted to see it, so it was good to check it out with you. Because some of that stuff is just like, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just one of those kind of things. But yeah. All right, so it's been Jay and Keith discussing the movie Civil War. Until next time, peace.
See you somewhere out in space.